Welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast, where you're going to hear from a huge array of thought leaders around the world who are making the world a better place. Here at Ever Widening Circles, where I'm the founder of a media outlet that tells the stories of all the insight and innovation going uncelebrated, here at Ever Widening Circles, we like to remind people that there is an enormous wave of goodness and progress going on in the world that almost no one knows about. And so we have an entire universe of platforms and projects that we're doing to promote the good in the world. We're just not hearing enough about it. Today's guest is Hadiya Masieh. Now, Hadiyah is an unbelievable, just a leader, an experimenter, a brave and outstandingly creative person in this space of peace building, which we all care so much about today. And she has an amazing story. Her project called Groundswell is a hyper local way of expanding on the good that's happening right in our own neighborhoods. That's all I'm going to do to introduce Hadiyah, because she has such a wonderful story and such a wonderful goal that I'm going to let her put it in her own words. Welcome, Hadiyah.
Hi, Linda. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm so delighted that we've caught each other. Hadiyah is you're in London, correct?
I'm in London, yeah.
Yeah, so we've had to play calendar tag and all kinds of time zone gyrations, and we just decided to go with it today. So Hadiyah, I introduced Groundswell in a very, very minor way, but Groundswell impressed me from the very first moment that I heard about it. I love your concept about community cohesion. You know, that word cohesion, sticking together, it includes kind of like, how do we find the glue to make us all multipliers for each other's good intentions? So give me some more background on your story, and then tell us all about Groundswell. And then I've got an amazing list of questions I want to ask you that'll apply to everyone's lives.
Sure, yeah. Well, I guess I've done a lot of interviews about my past, and I'm very keen that it's something that doesn't, like, people don't just focus on my past. It's my past that has helped me come up with this solution for the future. Like, it's informed me and given me what I need and the tools I need in order to come up with a solution. Like you said, no one's talking about the solution, they just keep talking about the problems. Right. So, a lot of life stories, people have learned from something, that a mistake or something that they've done in the past, and then they use that in order to make something better. And that insight is invaluable. So whether, I'll put people out of their misery now, but like my background was, I was recruited to a political Islamist organization. It was non-violent, but it was quite an extremist organization that wanted to establish an Islamic State. And this state, in my mind, when I was a teenager, I'm now 43 years old, so it was quite some time ago, but you're young, you're impressionable, and you want to make a change in the world. I mean, that's not new. Lots of teenagers want to do that, and I was no different. So a solution was given that, I was seeing all of these wars in the world. I was seeing, in my view, Western nations, the US going into Afghanistan and poor countries, destroying them and the lives of people, and they couldn't do anything about it. There was nothing there for them. And it was kind of presented to me that the reason why was because they are trying to destroy your faith in Islam, and they're trying to, to stop, these people from reproducing, and like very, very negative things. Like, and you kind of, you look at it and you're like, wow, that the way they are acting and carpet bombing and going, genocide, it is like they are trying to destroy these people and their faith. And that just struck me very personally, like, who is there to help these people? How can we help them? How can we save them? And as a teenager, that's what you want to do? You want to try and change the world, do good things. And they're like, well, you can change this by establishing a utopia state which will protect the lives of these people, that will be able to solve the situation, ward off the the foreign policy and the wars and the foreign powers, and be a protection for these people. And I found this like a sense of duty, like, yes, I want to protect these people. I want to protect the young Afghan boy who wasn't doing anything, playing in the street and just got blown up. This is not right. It's an injustice. And I felt that very strongly. Anyway, so I was part of this group, which I believed would really change the world. It was a non-violent organization, but we thought we'd do it like, do a military coup, and it would go swimmingly. And, like, this is, you've got this idealistic view as a young person. But there were, like, you've got, it's very much like a communist ideology, but with a bit of Islam thrown in. So it was politicized. And I honestly believed this for quite some time, like, really, that this was the greater good, that we're going to bring a goodness to the world. And then using my faith, I realized that this was being taken advantage of, like my desire to change the world, and my the way that I stuck to my faith was being taken advantage of. And that's what happens with a lot of religious groups. They take this passion for faith and misdirect it. And after the 7/7 bombings that happened in the UK, that was a bit of a turning point for me, where I realized, hang on a minute, that's not what I signed up for. That's not what I wanted to happen. These people are destroying more lives, more innocent lives, in the name of faith. And like a penny drop type of thing. I always say, like, it's something just like, no, that's not right. And at that time, my younger son was, I was actually, giving birth to a child. And I remember feeling so upset about the world. And it was a very emotional time. And there was lots of drugs involved as well. So I was extremely, like, high, I guess, on those things. I'm very emotional. And as I came out of that, like a changed person without realizing. And I slowly was starting to feel really like I was against the group that I was part of. I was like, no, I didn't want to hang out with them. There's something that didn't sit with me, and I didn't, I knew something needed to change, and I eventually left the group. So I was there for an entire decade, and then, like, imagine just someone, okay, now what do I do now? And I realized my personality at the time was strong enough to say, no, I'm going to go and find the truth, because that's where I always wanted to do. And I set off going and joining a Muslim Jewish theatre group, and it was just like you do, I just
like you do.
Yeah, like you do. I was like, I know, I'm just gonna go and join. And it was called Muju, as a Muslim Jewish theatre group. Because all of this time there's the issues around Palestine and Israel was, and I realized I didn't actually know any Jewish people, so I wanted to go and meet people and find out and get involved in peace, actual peace, and dialogue and interfaith.
So before we go on, I love to kind of mark a point in my own way of thinking sometimes that may be common to everyone else. Hearing you tell your story, and I've heard you talk about it a few times now. Hadiyah and I met at an Ideas conference. Gosh, Hadiyah, how long ago was that? Maybe 2 years, maybe 3 at PopTech?
2018 PopTech. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. It's been a while. And every time I've heard Hadiyah tell her story, it helps me remind myself of how passionate I was as a youth, how many questions I was asking, how I found answers sometimes too quickly, how I was developing my own critical thinking skills. I mean, this process that you described, Hadiyah, is is common to every single thinking teenager. Wouldn't you agree? Like this is
Yeah,
how we get down sometimes the wrong path, is that we're so impulsive. We're questioning everything. If somebody's figured out the neuroscience of giving us the answers that fit their agenda, they'll very often take advantage of us. And I love your story because you could apply it to almost every young person who's ever gone down a path. But what I also love about your story is that you use it in great with great power in what you're doing next.
yeah,
So keep going, because this is definitely one of these stories that we can all find a lot of strength in looking at our own stories, or looking at how our kids are moving along through life, or our
yeah.
neighbors' kids. Carry on.
Yeah, so coming out, I said like I wanted to find, I was on another quest, another mission to find
Mhm.
out, okay, that didn't quite work out. What do I do next?
Yeah.
And I said I went into interfaith groups. So I also had a mission, like I don't want anyone else to go down that route either. So I made it my work to stop and have this intercept where I found those young people going down that route, and to
Mhm.
say no, like how would I have spoken to me? Like, yes, you should feel upset about those things. That is not wrong. That is absolutely correct to feel anger about injustice and human rights, but you don't need to do X thing or Y thing. Put your passions into something positive.
Mhm.
And so what is it that where is our solution as a society? If we know young people think these things and we know they see injustice, there's no black and white answer like a lot of extremist groups give, whether that's to far right people, young people who are going down this route. You see a pattern. I work a lot with ex far right um, individuals as well, and I see a huge similarity. It's almost identical. Why wouldn't it be? As you said, every teenager goes through these patterns of thinking, and yeah, it's around offering the solution. If you don't have a solution, don't bother even trying to speak with that young person. You need to be able to do that, and that's where, well, why don't we set up Groundswell Project? Like that's where it's come from. I spent over 15 years working with young people and families um, who are trying to get their children away from radical ideas.
Mhm.
I found myself in a good position where I was called by, the UK Home Office when, there were issues around a young person going down the wrong route, and I was able, they gave me a call. I went to visit them, had some sessions, and then, pull them out of it. So
Mhm.
that pulling them out and bringing them back to center was something that I've learned. I've become an expert through the experience, but I don't want to just leave it there. Like the next stage has to come,
Yes.
and that's where I am with Groundswell Project. The solution that I'm trying to offer young people, which is way more cooler than any extremist group can offer.
I love that. Oh, I got goosebumps right now. Way more cooler. Okay. So this is what we need to really hear a lot more about, because you got a fascinating idea of solutions. But I don't want to fail to highlight this part of the fact that young people are looking for solutions to these really big questions in their mind. And there are plenty of those on the chaos side of this world who are offering them solutions.
Yeah.
And so that's how we get to that chaos, is that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, they're just solving a problem for youth. So how
Yeah.
do we solve a problem and give youth a different alternative path to what's next in their life? So tell us all about Groundswell, because I just think it's so clever.
It is, but it's also quite basic as well. It's like,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
if I use my insight into what is it that extremist groups do, can we do that but better?
Mhm.
Like we just beat them at their own game, I always say.
Love
So
it.
I know what they do, and I know where to put the stops and the barriers. And with that information, you then think, okay, extremist groups do their business in areas of in small community settings.
Mhm.
You know, young people haven't got I mean, I'm not going to you know, just stereotype who extremist groups, you know, recruit, because they can be all from all walks of life. You know, I had, you know, a very privileged life, went to private school, I went to, you know, all these things. So it's not that, oh, there have to be young disenfranchised people. It's just people who care. But a lot of the time they do go into communities where there are low prospects for young people, and if they are in that space, we also need to be in that space. So they were at university, we also need to be in university. So if they are working in small, you know, communities, there must be the antidote to that. There must be positive people who are also working in those communities. They must exist, and they do. And this is where we're saying the goodness. The goodness within the community is what will fight, you know, the bad. We're talking like black and white here, but I mean, that is actually what happens. Like the person who is interested in empowering a young person, who wants to see them progress, who wants to see them flourish, that person, there's always one of them in the community. There's always somebody doing good, lots of people doing good. Where are they? Can we empower them? Can we armor them? And can we encourage this work to you know, flourish? And so Groundswell Project, you know, we created a tech platform whereby we highlight and scope organizations that are working with young people, or working to do good in their communities, not just with young people. We put them onto the platform, and now everyone can see them. So if they are now visible, actually, like literally visible on a platform, it's easy for people to go in and help those organizations. Do you see what I mean? Like, yes. There's an organization that works for youth engagement, youth empowerment, or a mental health organization. A lot of extremist groups, they will you know, prey on people with mental health. So now we can see all of these organizations. We encourage local communities to go and donate their time, their efforts, join in their events. And this could also be like we have a big Somali community and a refugee community in where I live. So, you know, they've got events and they're doing amazing things for charity. How can local clothes or go and connect with them and create a dialogue? So it's like a cross-pollination of various communities in a small area, which Groundswell Project tries to facilitate.
Okay, so there's a mapping part of this. Describe Groundswell from the 100,000-foot look to us. If somebody Googles Groundswell Project, they're gonna find a lot of mapping, correct?
Yes. So our motto we came up with: find, connect, amplify. So we find the organizations, we connect people to those organizations and to one another, because oftentimes some organizations don't even know that they exist in one area. I know you were here 20 years, how can we not have known? So this is like, we connect them to one another, we connect people to the organization, and then we amplify the positive that they're doing in their community. So that could be a local event or family event along. An example is there was a Visit My Mosque Day. It's an actual called Visit My Mosque Day, and it's an opportunity for local people to come in. It's a place, you're not going to find Bin Laden in there. It's all going to be, you know, it's just a community center, and these people are scary. And so we amplified Visit My Mosque Day, and people were like coming in a bit like, oh, it's a bit scary, and then they're like, oh, have some tea, have some coffee, and like, oh wow, these people are just normal. I know it's like an obvious thing, but many people don't realize that, or they just need to be reminded, or like they're changed by just to go to that event.
Right.
And that's just one example. Like, imagine like there's hundreds of events, people just keep going and finding out new people, connecting in a way that we've realized through COVID is an absolute necessity. It's a human need to connect with other individuals.
So Groundswell, oh, I'm sorry, where there's a little bit of a lag in our transmission. So Groundswell is a way of connecting the dots in your community, in your local area. Like if you're in an area where you're working, people are going to be able to find out that there's this happening and that happening and this group that addresses this problem, and that you're like the like the yellow pages of goodness. Like people can find out exactly what they need and maybe want in their life to solve a problem. If we don't have a way to find that, I think what you've been observing is that there's all these radical groups that are all too happy to connect with people who have a problem.
Yeah.
And they'll give them a solution that's going to be hard on the rest of us for sure.
And they thrive in areas where there is that division, where there is that mistrust, and they thrive where people are siloed.
Right.
And where there is no integration. They cannot live or, embed themselves in a community that's together or understand one another more.
This is huge, right? So that's the gist, is that if you're creating networks of people who feel together, who are solving problems together, then the radical groups have no power there.
Yeah, you're creating a protective field sort against them. So, and I know this from, when I was part of this organization, I couldn't go into communities that already knew or were protective over their young people, or my agenda was to try and recruit for the greater good at that point. That's what I was thinking. But you'd get shooed away by organizations and communities that just like, get away from us, we don't like what you're about. And that is what I'm trying to build now. We need that deterrent, and it comes from a community that's aware, a community that's together, confident, knows one another, and is really positive. And that's, young people thrive as well in that environment. So it's kind of a win-win. It's like this is something I totally believe will work as a solution. Has been already. I've seen, the fruits of this, the labor already working.
So give us an example of some place Groundswell has been particularly got a nice, just a nice sphere of influence. Give us a really specific place and community that's done well with this.
So for example, there was a hate crime that occurred in 2013 where a community center was burnt down by a hate crime. And how do you recover from that? It's very traumatic. Imagine wow, it's pretty traumatic for the community. And one of the first things that happened was the Jewish community next door asked them if they wanted to pray in their synagogue. So that is like a beautiful act of kindness and goodness of community. So they established a relationship out of this, negativity and awful thing. So there was still quite in that area a lot of division and suspicion of one another in that group. And so what we did as Groundswell Project, we saw a piece of land, a garden that was really like derelict. And we were like, wouldn't it be great if we could clear out this garden and bring everyone in the community, from the young to the old, to some of the white middle class community members, as well as the refugees and asylum seekers, and say, look, why don't we all work together in this community garden and build a space that will help you recover. Nature is the best kind of cure as well. And you can disarm, and you can, put your stereotypes aside. You're here to build something together to benefit your children, and it's just be nice for everyone. And it was there was like suspicion of each other. We got them around the table, and people were like, I'm not sure about this. A lot of hesitance, say. But the more we, I realized you need facilitation. You need someone to be that glue, like you said, the cohesion. You're like, no, get back here. We're sitting around this table and we're doing this, and just being a bit bossy. Because inside they actually want it to work. They're just, worried. And I'm like, no, come on, this is what it's going to look like. Anyway, long story short, we managed to get the local council to clear the space. Everyone who loved gardens, whether they were refugees or, Nigel down the road, who's, forever lived in London, they were like started to talk because their passion was gardening, and they came together on that passion. And the next thing you know, the garden flourishes. You've got kids in there doing bug hotels, learning about ecology, learning about nature, really benefiting from that space. And the psychological effect that had on everybody involved, doesn't matter where they were from. They're like, we created something amazing for our community. And we had like breathing exercise in there. We have, so much like awesome, like horticultural stuff happening. And it's the community are now friends because of that. And it took work, a heck of a lot of work, but this is what it's going to, there's no quick fix, but there is a way if there is, direction and passion and, understanding. So that's an example, I think, maybe, would illustrate what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, this inside, they really wanted it to work. I mean, no one is saying they love these times. Not very many people on either side are saying, oh, this is a great time to be alive with all this division and chaos. No, inside we all want it to work. And I think something you pointed out that is that whenever we can get an opportunity to be able to say, we created this.
Yeah.
The we is so important in that. People will protect. There was I think there was a really wonderful group that was building schools. I can't recall, a good 20 years ago, before things went really off the rails. And they always made sure that they brought the materials. They would get the materials there, but the community had to build the school. They had to physically put their hands on it brick by brick, or they wouldn't give them the money for the school. Because they found out that the things people create together, they will protect. They will make sure it flourishes, right?
Absolutely. And that's what's happening now. I walk past that garden and I can see people, and it just makes, it just took a facilitator. The people did the work, but you do need this is why I say we need Groundswell Project to make the pathways and the facilitation. I say, like, nothing can just happen like just by wishing it. You have to, like, if I wanted to party, for example, I won't just sit and think, oh, I want a party. I have to organize it. I have to bring people together. I need to send out invitations. There's work that has to go on. And I think this is what's missing is extremist groups. They do the work, they do the legwork, they do the flyers and their posters and their symbols, and they're active doing this. And similarly, we need to be that active. We need to just, we have a part to play in, ensuring our society doesn't go down, the society of hatred. That's our job, to make sure that doesn't happen, but we don't realize it.
So yeah, and this is across the board for hate groups, right? I know that at some point you had or have, or you're connected to, tell us the story of Brad Galloway and how that relates, because I don't want people to think that this is strictly in one genre of this world of division we're living in.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like, people who've gone through a similar experience, regardless of like the actual path, when we we come together, we realize we went down exactly the same emotions. We were, looking for some kind of answer, and we were offered it by the wrong people.
So Brad, to fill
Brad,
people in, if people don't know about who Brad Galloway is.
So Brad Galloway was, he's based in Canada and was like the head of a neo-Nazi organization. I forget the name now, but he's done a lot of interviews, and we worked together with an organization called Life After Hate. And they help people who've been part of far-right groups and organizations, Proud Boys, or like, even there's a spectrum of like the extent to which they hate. And to bring them out of those groups and into normal community. So he does a similar thing to what I do with young people who are veering down the Islamist side of root of things. And we both we both kind of work with one another, because I sometimes work with his clients and he works with mine, and it just brings that different dynamic, because we're all about showing that we're listening, that we're showing some kind of kindness and compassion and understanding to that other person in a way that they haven't been offered before. So extremist groups give this pretense that they care about that individual when they've just got a political agenda or whatever type of darker agenda. Whereas myself and Brad, we just genuinely don't want people to go down that route, and just, I would say, like, we've got to be there to give the hug before anyone else does, in that sense.
Yes, that is absolutely the bottom line. Okay, we're going to take a break and talk about a multiplier effect that we're trying to have at Ever Widening Circles with a new organization we've created, where people doing good in the world can find each other and learn from each other and ask questions and just really feel like they've found their group. So let's take a break, and when I come back, we'll talk some more about this. Okay, now we're back, and I want to talk about this pretense of caring, and just dive a little bit down this rabbit hole of, where are the peace builders? Like, this is a real quandary of our times. It seems like the megaphone is just constantly being put in front of anyone who can be outrageous, or who can just spew the most thoughtful stuff. I don't know about you, Hadiyah, but my first thoughts are not that good. I have to really be thoughtful and careful before I just go spouting things. So tell me about what you've noticed in the world about facilitation, because that's what you're talking about, I think, here. My sense is that your organization is facilitating peace building on all kinds of levels, in all kinds of corners.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you said. I always say, like, where the good people at? I know, like, good and bad is not so black and white, but where are the people who are really genuinely want to bring something positive into their community? And it's about connecting those. I cannot do something on my own as Hadiyah, like, impossible. But if you did, like, connect those droplets, it makes a puddle. It could make a river. It can make a sea. This is how those laws work, and it's no different to this idea of promoting goodness, and how it spreads very quickly too. So one idea of the garden. Sorry.
I just want to go ahead. Tell me more about this garden, because I think it's a really good example of how I understand your work and what's possible for us all.
Yeah, just briefly to say, like, someone saw that one garden and it didn't stop there. They're like, how did you do that? Tell us how we did it. And we can, like, we share that, the methodology, and it inspires people to do something in their community, and then somebody else will see it, and it's kind of multiplies in that way.
And when you talk about community, you are talking about micro zones of influence. You're not talking about my 17,000 person town. I mean, we can do it that way, but you really are focusing on the person by person aspect of this, right?
Yeah, like micro, neighborhoods, like making sure that it's just that hyper local thing, and that is so good on so many levels, because you then see, like you said, when you've been part of something, you feel more of an ownership towards it, and more of a connection to what you've the fruits of your labor. So you've seen, so the people who made the garden, again, I keep going to the same example, but it's so brings out so many points that they see that every morning, and they're proud that they did that, and the person that they spoke to as a result. So I always see when people can, even when they donate their money and their time, they can see where it's going as some like major charity organization. They don't see that money, but if they, invest in their own neighborhood, their time, their effort, their money, they see the fruits of that. And if every community did that, you wouldn't need to, we would have that patchwork blanket of just goodness.
So help us with the nuts and bolts of this. If somebody says, gee, my neighborhood could use a real shot in the arm, like a coming together. What's the nuts and bolts of this for somebody who wants to help you? Because we've noticed that there's 3 kinds of people in this world. There's the helpers. Those are people that just are willing to pitch in and just do what's needed. There's the learners, the people who need to learn a lot about concepts, and they definitely are the knowledge keepers and add their own special sauce. And then there's the doers that start this or that. So if somebody, let's take those 3 categories apart. Let's say if somebody's a learner, they just want to learn a lot more about what you're doing and try and understand how powerful this can be. Where would they go? Have you done interviews, or do you have a part of your organization where people can learn more about this and how it would actually work?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have the website and everything's developing. We don't have everything perfect. It's always growing and getting and improving. But yeah, I think the mapping system is kind of self-explanatory, that these are organizations that are doing good in their community, adding, and you can literally add your own organization to the mapper yourself, and then we'll just vet it, and it'll be plonked on there, and there you are. You'll be put onto the map, literally.
Wow.
And then so if you've got an organization doing something good, you can practically just add yourself on there.
Okay.
And then to find out more, we've created quite a few 3-minute videos that have gone quite viral as well.
Okay.
The videos on the site to get more information on. You'll find a video about Ivan Humble, who was part of an extremist right-wing organization, who, he comes out saying, my enemy was the Muslim community. And then he talks about how he went into a mosque one day and then changed his mind. And then now he works for he's an anti-racist campaigner, and he works with us. So his story is amazing. I recommend that you go and watch some of these 3-minute videos to get inspired.
And we will have a link to those in the show notes, so don't worry, you won't have to do much searching. So Hadiyah, there's a lot of concepts here that my work at Ever Wedding Circle seems to overlap. And, one of the things that we talk about is that it's important, even in our toughest moments, to be kinder than we need to be. I'm sure you've had moments where you just wanted to snap because of assumptions that people make or whatever. I know the social innovators roller coaster is full of these emotional tests.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is. I do have to share that Hadiyah and I got together on Friday to just catch up. We hadn't talked in a long time. And about maybe 2 minutes before she and I were supposed to jump on a call, my husband called me to tell me that my identity had been stolen.
Crazy.
And and so all that was falling out. And so our conversation was very brief, but I tell you, you and I had a little moment of social innovator coping skills going on there, because we were talking about the law of attraction, and I think we both meant it in a good way, right? Like if you want good in the world, you put it out there and you're gonna attract it. You do good and it's gonna come back to you. But then I had actually started scheduling time for chaos building.
Well, I was pointed that out to you, something very obvious. I was like, do you actually do that, Linda? And you're like, yeah. I was like, maybe you should stop.
Maybe you should stop factoring 2 hours for chaos, because then chaos will follow you. And that's how. And I love the way you said, do you know what? This idea of law of attraction keeps coming around in different ways. I love the way you said that as well. It was just...
Right after I told you that I was actually scheduling time for chaos each day because it kept happening to me over and over again.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about this part of the equation, because anybody who's listening to this interview probably already is in what we call the conspiracy of goodness. They're probably doing something in their own orbit, large and small, to make the world a better place, or they know groups that they're connected to in some way, or they're thinking about starting something that really needs, it's the solutions based. But you and we had to use our sense of humor that day. You were in an awkward moment because my face was probably white, and with terror.
I was shocked you could still talk to me.
But we both, at some point, you just have to have a sense of humor. So tell me some good coping skills that you're finding as you're moving along this, because you've been working at getting to where you are today with this Groundswell organization for how many years now?
Probably like 15 years it's taken for me to come to that conclusion. I've always known it, but
So now, just the other day, we used a sense of humor. What else gets you along the way? Like, do you have some vision of what's possible for us all that makes you get up every morning? Or do you have certain coping skills that work for you when you run into a giant hurdle that just sideswipes you like mine on Friday?
Yes, I guess. Yeah, there's this like every cloud has a silver lining. You're like, where the hell is it, please? Where is this silver lining?
Okay. And do you usually find it? Yeah, it is there. Do you usually find one?
Yes, it takes a bit of time. You kind of let it have to, like in the middle of the chaos at the moment, at that time when you're not thinking, it's like the worst thing ever, but you just have to breathe and sit down. You're like, oh my God, all these good things happening as a result. And it takes time, and you have to learn patience. Like you can't force things to happen. And often things happen when you're least expecting it as well. That's the pattern that I've seen. Like, wow, when I really want it, it doesn't happen. And then when I kind of forget about it a little bit and just go and have a break, then it happens.
Interesting. Okay. So being patient, persevering, how do you keep yourself motivated? I know people want me to ask you this because because we all are facing complicated times right now. Everything seemed like to be on the treadmill and complicated to begin with, and now it just seems like things are coming at us. So, do you have a routine? Are you very routine oriented, where you have a workaround for the common things that are obstacles for you?
I don't have a routine. I'm the most disorganized person on earth. How about that? I'm being really honest.
Maybe that serves you, because then your expectations are very low in any given moment.
I just stopped being this way. Like I just cut loose, because I know what my intention is, and I feel this freedom, and I know what I'm doing it for. I'm doing it, for myself, for my children, for the future generation, and it's something that's bigger than me.
Right.
And I'm doing it for. So I don't look at it as something personal. I'm doing it again, like it's part of my makeup. I think from a teenager, I still was thinking about this, doing it for the greater good of humanity. And it's like my tiny contribution to that. And if I look at me in the great scheme of things, I'm quite minuscule. And just like recognizing that your part in the world is significant, but it's not everything. And to not put pressure on myself as well, like, oh no, I've got to do this and that. And it's quite easy to do, because the more interest I'm getting in the project, people want to know more about it, and I've got to do different pitches, and it can be quite daunting. So if you just not put the pressure on you. Enjoy it. It's about enjoying the journey.
Okay.
And yeah, it's important for me to do that.
That is very true, isn't it? Like you can find yourself, if you focus too narrowly on the moment and how much stress there is to get this, that, or the other thing done, you forget to enjoy the journey. I mean, I would assume that your success now is what you wanted. It's what you were working towards.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just, yeah, I just feel it's not because I'm like desperate for something. It's just I'm allowing it to happen. Just being open and just free and allowing good stuff to happen. And you want to see the good as well. So I was like, if you had like a garden full of like, you know, piles of manure, but one tree that was beautiful, you just focus on that one tree. And or other way around, you know, like if it was like loads of trees that were beautiful and a piece of manure, you wouldn't focus. A lot of people do that, like they've got a perfect world and just want to see that bad. So it's just like you just focus on everything that's beautiful, and that kind of, you know, it feeds into your own inner self and makes you just happier generally.
Absolutely. What we give our attention to expands.
Exactly.
I'm sure you found that. So when you're confronted with these harsh realities, I'm sure you get your groove on and everything's going, but like in our projects, something takes you by surprise. Are you bracing? Are you pausing and then shifting up to success recipes you found before, or what do you do when something just wants to broadside you?
I just kind of go into hibernation a little bit, to be honest, and just kind of recalibrate and just like, I'm not feeling in a good space. These things are not going my way, and it feels quite negative, and a lot of things are trying to pull me down, and I can feel it. But you know, it's like summoning that inner energy that I know I've got to try and break away from it, and you know, look at, you know, summoning that inner passion and my goal. It elevates me, and kind of it takes a few days. It might need a retreat or going away or going for walks or whatever it is, but I do kind of cut myself off, and if it's particularly a bad thing that's happening, and surround myself with, you know, I've got amazing friends and my family. I'm very, you know, blessed in that way, and that's what I do, and that feeds me and energizes me again. It takes a while, but you know, I know I'll get there.
And you've probably done it. You've probably done hard things over and over again like that, so you know that you can do it again.
Yeah, I'm hoping I don't have to do it much more, but yeah.
But you know, I guess my point is that we all hit these moments, these real bumps in the road, and I would imagine that you've got so many stories of where your efforts were successful or where you're gaining ground right now that you can, and we back to your forest and manure analogy, you know, that's what we need to train our mind on, is the successes we had, the vision that those successes allowed us to create, rather than looking at the bare ground and rocks below our feet.
Yeah, and just try and keep in this elevated positive mindset of, you know, if you do good things, it will come back to you, and it's better to do that than go down it. Like, what's the alternative? You know what I mean? It's do the bad stuff. Like, it's not in our makeup to do it. So keep on that road. It will get better. It will get easier.
Yes, that is it is good to remind us of the alternative too. Yeah, it's one or the other.
And as cheesy as that is to say, it's all about, you know, the goodness then creates you know, the kindness and the goodness, and creates so much love as well. Like, you know, it has that effect, and you know, it helps your heart, and you become addicted to trying to look for that as well in your life, because it makes you feel so much better.
Yeah, and what a great thing to be addicted to. Gosh, there are so many on the other side. Okay, so if people want to get a hold of you, they want to know more. Are you keeping this pretty contained to your region? Are you open for people to connect with you about it? Would it be like starting another map, another chapter? What's your best case scenario about how this grows?
Well, again, it needs to grow organically, and we've got our email is info@groundswell.world, and I put .world as because I want it to go global, that this is community, it's people, it's humanity. We're all over the world, and it's a formula that can help work in any region, whether you're in the US or Canada or Africa, or wherever. Where there are good people doing good things in their community, we need to know, we need to encourage it and learn from it. And extremist groups are not just working in one space, they're all over the world. And again, we will walk in that path but do a better job. So I would love to see the map of growing. It can be put anywhere in the world. So any organizations that are around the world that are doing great things can be added to the map anywhere.
I think it's just waiting for just a really big announcement that you exist. Because it's so obvious that this is the way to go. Okay, so I like to ask founders, if there was one thing that could happen that just fundamentally would launch you to the next level. Almost all of us have something that is our greatest barrier to whatever we perceive as the next level. I was talking to Principal Linda Wayman. She turned around one of the most dangerous high schools in America. And when I was chatting with her, I asked her that. And she said, I need a facility for these kids to get together. With the college, she has a bunch of college volunteers that would counsel these high school kids that she's helping. But she had no facility. And somebody in her community heard this podcast and called her within days, and not only found her a place where they could meet, but also funded her project.
Oh, wow. Wow. It's amazing.
So I think it's important when I talk to founders to just ask, like, what is the one thing that could happen that would enable you to take this to the next level?
Well, we've done the groundwork. I always say this analogy: we've built the ship, and we need a crew to run it. And everything that takes effort, it takes human power, and to have a team to pay for people's salaries to make this work. That's probably what I'm looking for, and trying to find ways of being be sustainable and self-sufficient is my goal. And yeah, like that's the idea, is that everything needs fuel, and for me it's bringing people on board who can be part of the crew.
Okay, great. So if folks know someone who can help get the word out that you exist to people and organizations that are doing good in the world, that's the best thing that could happen to you.
Yeah. Have a team.
Yeah, great. That is such a great. Okay, good. All right. So any of people listening to this podcast, if this all makes sense to you, contact Hadiyah. Where would people be able to connect with you the best?
Our website, info@groundswell.world.
And your
the website.
Okay. All right. So you've got somebody monitoring that would get a message to you if someone's got something really important to add.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So the end of every interview, I always ask, what proves to you, Hadiyah, that it is still an amazing world? That's our byline, ever widening circles. It is still an amazing world. What keeps you going in the morning?
I'm just grateful for everything that's around me and the people I have in my life, that I've got my health, that I've got the ability to keep going. I think mainly it's the people, because the people, not the material stuff, it's the human beings in my life that I love and they love back. And the more you love, you never like run out of it, and it just grows. And so that's what keeps me going. I'm
Well,
doing
I'll
it
tell you.
but yeah, for my children mainly. I think as a mother and women as peace builders, that's often a kind of motivation for mothers in particular, and the feminine energy we have is quite extraordinary.
Yeah, and that is carrying us forward. It's definitely a part of the wind that I think is going to help us open a new era. There's a lot of common sense there that's got 30, 40, 100,000 years worth of with of wisdom going on, when it's the way we mothers tend to care about the future in a unique way, because it's so strong within us to protect our kids.
It is.
So thank you so much for joining us, Hadiyah. I really want people to check out Groundswell. I've been interested in it since the moment I heard about it, and it has grown so much. I love some of the photos that you sent me, how you're making progress. It's something that we can all...
I've got to say, please, sorry to interrupt.
No, go for it.
Please like join our Instagram, and DM us on Instagram and social media as well, because we've put a lot of pictures and videos up there of our Kindness Matters campaign, and we just want to like shout about it. So give us something to shout about. It'd be great.
Lovely. Absolutely. And these are, this is deep in our core, what we all know is important, is being a part of something much bigger than ourselves. So thank you for giving us that opportunity and creating it.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to go and put some things on that map today.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, lovely.
There is feedback as well.
So thank you to Hadiyah for being a thought leader who's a part of opening a new era for us all. And thanks to our affiliate partners for proving it's still an amazing world. You can find information about today's featured affiliate partners in the show notes below. And you can help us by supporting Ever Widening Circles through the app. I have a book called Happiness is an Option that helps support Ever Widening Circles. And if you're one of the people that Hadiyah is working to support while supporting communities, we have so much pride in this Conspiracy of Goodness network that we've just started. There you can meet people like Hadiyah, people like the folks that would wind up on her map, and we can all be multipliers for goodness. I always like to say goodness can be viral too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Have a great week. Remember to check out the Conspiracy of Goodness Network, Ever Widening Circles, and I hope these connections to goodness and progress serve you, and we'll be back again next week. Thanks.